May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. The first time I experienced death in a personal way was on June 19th, 2007. I had just graduated college and spent the weekend with two of my best friends as we each anticipated where our post-college life would lead us. I was headed 2,000 miles west to start seminary. Pilar was headed a similar distance south to serve with the Sisters of the Good Shepherd in Paraguay. And Fatima was staying in Washington, D.C. to explore internship options. It was a goodbye of sorts, but also a promise. A promise that even though we were going to be thousands of miles apart, we would remain in each other's hearts. When I arrived home, I took a nap and was awakened by Pilar's ringtone. I almost didn't answer because I was sleeping and I just spent the whole weekend with her. But that phone call would change the course of my life forever. She was crying and made sure that I was not alone before she would talk. She said Fatima and her father Naushad had been killed in a car accident on the way home from the airport. My world dropped out from under me. I screamed at the top of my lungs for my mommy, but in that moment, even her arms around me could not make it better. No pain, physical or emotional, since that moment has ever equaled the desolation I felt then. In the years since that day, I have met death many times, both personally and professionally. In my work as a hospice chaplain, I meet death every day. And I have learned that death has a nuance I could never have understood at 22 years old. Sometimes the worst death is not that of the physical body. Sometimes it is the death of a dream, or the death of our own pride, or the death of hope, or any number of deaths we experience throughout our lives. As I was thinking about that, and as I was preparing to preach this Sunday, I kept coming back to the psalm. I'll be honest, I struggle a lot with this psalm. Because you have made the Lord your refuge, the Most High your dwelling place, no evil shall befall you, and no disaster will come near your tent. Let's hear that again. Because you have made the Lord your refuge, the Most High your dwelling place, no evil shall befall you, no disaster shall come in your tent. My first instinct upon reading those words is to call them out as lies, to cry out my heartbreak, to cry out my witness of others' heartbreak. Am I not faithful enough, God? Is no one faithful enough? I look at a world ravaged by COVID-19, by racial injustice, by human trafficking, a world where children go hungry and whole communities go without clean water, even though there is plenty for everyone. More personally, a world where a 22-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her can be killed in the blink of an eye. And I want to cry out and ask God whether that counts as disaster in my tent. But the scriptures beg us to sit with them. Hundreds of thousands of people across every continent and every century since they have been written have found these words important enough to pass on to us. They have found them important enough to use in liturgies and prayers, to read over and over again, to pray with in their most desperate and hopeless moments. So let me trust our ancestors for a moment. Let me set aside my pride and my heartbreak and sit with these scriptures for a little bit longer. While traditions state that Moses might have written these words, in reality we do not know who exactly wrote them or when exactly they were written. Some of the terms used for God and the context clues let us know it is one of the more ancient psalms. But no matter when in Israel's history this psalm was written, it was not written by someone who has never known disaster in their tent. Israel's history is rife with war and slavery and exile and pestilence and all sorts of suffering. If someone who has experienced those things, if a people who have lived into that kind of disaster can write these words of faith, can pray these words of faith over multiple millennia, perhaps they deserve a closer look. Perhaps my experience is not so unique that I cannot learn from these words passed on through generations. I want to skip a few verses and share with you some verses near the end. The psalmist, speaking from God's point of view, states in verse 15, "When they call to me, I will answer them. I will be with them in trouble." I had a professor in seminary who used to say, if it's repeated, it's important. So let me repeat this. When they call to me, I will answer them. I will be with them in trouble. Is that not what we all hope for? When we put the names of our loved ones or ourselves on the prayer list, we do it in the hope that we will not be alone in our struggle. When my daughter begs that one of us stay upstairs until she falls asleep, she does it in the hope that if she gets scared, she will not be alone. During the last year and a half, we have struggled so mightily, in part because we have felt more alone. We have been working from home without getting to see our colleagues in person. We have been worshiping from our couches or kitchens or bedrooms without being able to see each other in person. We have had to leave loved ones in care facilities and hospitals to struggle with everything from dementia to cancer to COVID, alone. Hope is difficult to find when we are alone. I'll say it again. Hope is difficult to find when we feel alone. But this psalm, amongst its promises of safety from disaster and evil, has this absolute, profound, and extraordinary statement. When they call to me, I will answer them. I will be with them in trouble. It is slightly paradoxical that at the end of a psalm that promises God will keep disaster and trouble at bay, that God promises to be with us in the disaster and the trouble. But this is a paradox that we must live with as people of faith. One of the many themes that we find in the letters that Paul wrote, as well as Jesus' teachings, is the idea of the now and the not yet. The kingdom of heaven exists now in this real and experienced world. But the kingdom of heaven is something we look forward to as the reward of our salvation. Throughout the New Testament scriptures, we are told stories and examples of ways we can begin to build the kingdom of heaven here and now. The kingdom of heaven is like the lost sheep that the shepherd goes after. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that grows into a great bush. The kingdom of heaven is like a prodigal son welcomed home, and many more. By loving God with all our heart, mind, strength, and soul, and by loving our neighbors as ourselves, we enact sparkling moments that allow the kingdom of heaven to break through into this reality. But in this current world, this broken world, the kingdom of heaven cannot fully manifest yet. We are promised a home, a place where all weeping will cease, a place of safety and belonging. These are the promises of a faithful God. Psalm 91 lives in the now and the not yet. It promises that God will protect us from all evil and disaster, and at the same time, that God will be with us in those times of evil and disaster. In the now, we are not alone. In the not yet, we will find perfect fulfillment of all God's promises. That is the root of our faith. Now, as I was preparing for today's sermon, this is about where I got stuck. I knew I wasn't done yet. I had a nagging feeling that I had more to say. So I sat down and talked it over with my spouse, David. And he told me, everything you've said makes sense so far. But what do you want people to take away from listening to you? What is it that you want to leave with them to leave with? I was momentarily stumped. But after a few moments of thought, it hit me. Hope. As I read Psalm 91 and was overwhelmed by the disparity between my experience and the experience of all those in the world today, and the words on the page, I realized that hope is what I want to share with you today. Hope is the feeling of a shoulder next to yours when you're attending a funeral of someone you love. Hope is the feeling you get when a friend's name is on your caller ID. Hope is when you see the porch light left on for you at the end of a hard day of work. Hope is every small and large step you carve into the darkness, and every time you allow someone else to shine their light into your darkness. Hebrews chapter 11 states, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen." As we look around the world, as we look around our lives and the lives of those we love, it would be easy to say, I don't see it. I don't see the kingdom of heaven. I don't see the promises of God, especially in the last year and a half, when we have been forcibly isolated from so much of what we have depended upon for strength. When we are so isolated, it is easy not to see what is all around us. I want to take a moment and shine a light on the hope that is the very root of this community. We moved to Richmond 2 weeks before the quarantine hit last year. We isolated and social distanced and never left our house except for work, because I work in healthcare. We never found a church. We were only able to slowly make friends in the neighborhood. We kept saying, when COVID is over, we will everything. Over the summer, when Holy Comforter opened back up for worship, we decided to finally take a step towards hope and began attending church in person again. And we were welcomed with open hearts, if not the open arms we would have expected before COVID. I have witnessed the care you have for each other and the care you have for the community around you, and it fills me with hope. You co-create hope in this place every time you stand up as your authentic self and say, this is what I have to offer my community. You co-create hope in this place every time you stand up as your authentic self and despite pride or despair say, I need help. Hope is a covenant between God and us and within our communities that no matter the trouble, no matter the disaster, we travel together. Hope is a promise to help when we are able and to accept help when we need it. And hope says, even if we cannot take the trouble away, we never have to deal with it alone. As you read, ponder, and pray over Psalm 91, I invite you not to despair because you cannot see how the promises are going to be fulfilled. Instead, I offer you the hope that is found between the now and the not yet, the hope that you create in this community every single day. Amen.